Judge Joe Brown versus Jabari Osaze.
And I am honored and also dismayed to be debating Judge Joe Brown today. I thought that this debate would be good, not only because we could clarify for people of African descent, for Black people, how we should actually view the election and perhaps even who they might decide to vote for. But I'm debating this elder here today because he said some really strident things. He said things that I would term misogynistic. He'd said some things that I would say are based in really inappropriate commentary about one of the candidates, while he has also been extremely in favor of a candidate who has displayed openly misogynistic and racist views. And so I want you to know today, family, that I intend to hold Judge Joe Brown's feet to the fire. You know that I'm going to be respectful. You know that I'm going to honor Judge Joe Brown and not be disrespectful to him, but I am going to take the fight to him because I really do believe that some of the things that he said are beyond the pale. We have one candidate who is attempting to describe policy. We have one candidate who is attempting to describe what the future of the United States should look like. And we have another candidate who is spending all of their time engaging in complaints about personal grievance, engaging in attacks on people based on their gender, based on their race, based on their ethnicity. I truly believe that one candidate, and I am talking about Donald Trump, is beneath the position of the president of the United States. Yet Judge Joe Brown has clearly supported him and supported him with commentary that, as I said, is inappropriate, but also supported him with ideas that are not based in reality. I have heard Judge Joe Brown on several platforms spout things that are based in innuendo and rumor. Well, I want to explain to Judge Joe Brown and to the entire audience that this is the sa.neter TV studio community, and we say source up or shut up. I'm really going to look forward to seeing him source up and defend his claims. Thank you.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can.
All right. I don't need any references because I am the reference. And what usually happens when people ask for reference, they want facts, when what they're really talking about is, in an academic sense, the references are also arguments that lend weight to what's going on. To begin with, I'm waiting for our first Black American candidate for either vice president or president of the United States. We haven't had one yet. Barack Obama at least had white ancestors with a long connection with the country, but his African side was very recent as daddy. I guess he was alive Afro-American or African-American. Kamala Harris has absolutely none. Her parents had a temporary visa status on an academic admission, so they were visitors, so they weren't even trying to settle the place, so she's effectively fresh off the boat. So I'm waiting for our African-American, our Black person with an American legacy who comes in here to run for president. As far as I'm concerned, she's a fake. And if we're talking about a paint job, well, I'm a hunter, and I used to put out decoys when I wanted to bring in ducks because I wanted duck l'orange for dinner. Put out the decoy, bring out the duck call, you can get the ducks to come in. Now, the Democratic Party got brought into being second decade of the 19th century to protect and spread slavery. They started the Civil War. They invented the Klan, Jim Crow, all the rest of it. They know their Negroes and how to work them, and they are doing that. So what we have here is a lot of Negroes who don't know how to be Black, and they're not using free will to make their decisions, but they're conditioning as Negroes. Now, I'm looking at a fake person. You can start with her talking about listening to Tupac, smoking dope, and inhaling in the dorm. And when she was in the dorm, Tupac would have been 11 years old. So that's out the way. washing greens in the bathtub where everybody washes their behind in the dorm, your mama would have beat the crap out of you if it even thought about that. That's another lie. I was one of those girls on the bus. Well, let's see. I was a teacher in the LA City school system when that would have happened. And there were no segregated schools in California at the time, though there might have been some segregated neighborhoods. So she's lying about that. The truth is not in that woman. And what we are voting for is emasculation of the country. We're voting for the destruction of the traditional nuclear family if we vote for Harris and Waltz. Tampon Tim, they call him. And I call her the lying hyena, because that wretched grin that indicates that she's got psychological problems that we always hear is obscene. Next thing, we're looking at Nazification of the country. We already have her talking about strength.
There's a reason why we tell people that they need to source up or shut up. There's a reason. And one of the major reasons why we do this is because we want to be able to see the quality of your fathoming. We want to see the rationale by which you arrived at your analysis. And when you start by saying, I don't need a reference, I am a reference, you can see that we're talking to someone who has actually believed things that are ethereal. What am I saying? Unfortunately, I think that Judge Joe Brown has gone for the okie doke. I think that he hears things and he believes them without actually vetting them. I have lots of examples of this, not just what you just heard. But let's just start with something he said in a moment. I want you to know in this round, I'm going to talk a little bit about Kamala Harris's heritage, because you're going to continue to hear Judge Joe Brown say that she's not Black. And if I have time, I will also talk a bit more about her policies. I also want to deal at some point in this conversation with her opponent, Donald Trump, so we can actually see that Judge Joe Brown is supporting a white supremacist. I don't know why, but Judge Joe Brown is supporting a white supremacist. Before we do all of that, I do want to show this on that. I'm going to present this for a second, and this will help us remember why it's important for us to source up. If you can share, sa.neter. This is from Reuters. This is a Reuters fact check. Kamala Harris did not say she listened to Snoop Dogg and Tupac while smoking marijuana in college. You just heard the judge say that. He is wrong. He is wrong. Maybe he should evaluate what he's heard and what he believes, because I think that if he continues to listen to rumor and innuendo and think that he has a cogent analysis, he is going to be led astray. Let's read a little bit. Social media users have been sharing a quote online claiming Kamala Harris said she listened to Snoop Dogg and Tupac while smoking marijuana in college. Users have questioned the statement, and the claim is being used to discredit Harris because both artists' first albums were released years after Harris had already graduated from college. Did you notice that he said she's a liar because of the time frame? But that's not what she said. The quote refers to an interview with Harris that Harris did in February 2019 with the Breakfast Club, so on, so on, and so on. By the way, they give you all the links you'd like to see here as well. In the interview, Charlamagne the God asks Harris if she smoked marijuana, and Harris responds that she has. Later in the interview, DJ Envy asks Harris what music she listens to. Before she has a chance to answer, Charlamagne the God interrupts by asking what music Harris listened to while smoking marijuana in college. Harris laughs but ignores Charlamagne the God's question, responds to the original query of what she listened to by saying Snoop Dogg, Tupac, and Cardi B. Clearly, she's not saying she listened to Cardi B in college, because Cardi B's been out about 5 years. Clearly, that's not what she's saying. But the folks that are putting that forward are trying to misrepresent what was said. And as they do that, I want you to know that what you have to do is listen to folks, evaluate what they're saying, and then chastise them for the inappropriate comments that they have made. So Judge Joe Brown, the older, needs to be chastised. He needs to be chastised for making those ridiculous comments. Let's really quickly show you a little bit on her ethnicity. Here's a bit on her ethnicity. Here are her parents. These are Kamala Harris's parents. You're even going to hear Judge Joe Brown. He says it many times. He said it a bit today, but I have the clips of him saying it elsewhere. Actually say that her mother is Indian. That is true. And her father is not Black. He's Jamaican. He's called him an Indo-Jamaican. I heard him say that in person. I actually confronted him about it in person. The conversation did not go well. You should know that when he says that, he's saying something that the right is saying without any sources, without any deeper understanding, without any merit. Thank you, sa.neter. Some people have even gone as far to say that this is her father. It is not. It is not. Here are images of Kamala Harris's father with his two daughters. Does that look like an Indo-European to you? Does that look like an Indo-Jamaican to you? I want you to be clear that these are his grandmothers, Miss Iris and Miss Chrissy. Do those look like Indians to you? In fact, you'll even see a young Kamala Harris sitting on the lap of who would be her great-grandmother. Can you at least even look at the hair of this woman here? I mean, are we not talking about the hair of a person of African descent? What are we talking about here? This is one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever had to contend with, but will have to. You'll even hear people talk about her birth certificate, that her father is listed as Jamaican, and they'll even say, well, her mother is listed as Caucasian. You can see here that on her birth certificate, she is listed as Jamaican. And her mother does say that she's Caucasian, but you'd have to be trying to misrepresent something to actually believe that. Let's try to have a better analysis of what we know about Kamala Harris. First of all, to understand what it means to be listed as Jamaican on the United States birth certificate, look at the United States Census and what they say the updates to OMB, the Office of Management and Budgets, race and ethnicity standards mean for the Census Bureau. This will give you a sense of why he was listed as Jamaican. What does Jamaican mean? Jamaican is a nationality, but when the United States lists Jamaican, what do they mean? Look here. Can you see this? This is why sourcing up is important, dear judge. This is Table 5 from 2024 SPD 15, and I want you to look at what they say for Black or African American. It says individuals with origins in any of the Black racial groups, including Black racial groups of Africa, including, for example, African American. What's the second one? Jamaican, Haitian, Nigerian, Ethiopian, and Somali. These are examples of what they mean when you see Jamaican on a birth certificate. They were in fact saying that she was Black. And really quickly, since I have very little time left, I want to also let you know that Reuters has also fact-checked this idea that her mother was Caucasian. And they say very clearly here, while speaking to a faculty scholar at Syracuse, Harris's mother, Shamaya Golapan, self-identified as Caucasian because Indians were classified as white and Caucasian in the United States in the 1960s.
You go to Reuters, and Reuters is a white supremacist agency. And I heard what she said because I was listening to it live when she went on. I think it was about 4.5, 5 years ago on The Breakfast Club talking to Charlemagne. I think that's what she said. Now, you want to get beyond that and deal with busing when she was, second grade, which at what time she would have been in Canada anyway. And also, I was a school teacher, so I do recall her claiming during the debate with Mr. Biden, who knows his Negroes, back when she was distinctive about she was on the bus. I was one of those children bused. And then I do recall listening to her blab on about washing greens in a dormitory bathroom, which is absolutely preposterous. So you rely on Reuters, an instrument of white supremacy, for your information and authentication. All right, where do you go with that? So, what are you talking about when you say Jamaican? She's an Indo-Aryan. Her father is an Indo-Aryan, not an Aryan Jamaican or Indo-Jamaican. I happen to have met the man, sat at the same table with him. I believe it was on an occasion when both the Prime Minister and the Governor General of Jamaica invited me and my now ex-wife, and we sat at the table. I know blonde-haired, blue-eyed people who were born in Jamaica and are Jamaican. Redhead, one was blonde, both of them born in Jamaica, because it was part of the English Empire, part of the English Commonwealth. And you can go to Jamaica, particularly if you go to St. Elizabeth Parish, and you get high, bright, and white, and you can hear somebody talk patois, and you turn around and somebody Chinese because they come from Hong Kong or Singapore, part of the British Commonwealth. You run into Pakistanis, you run into Indians because it's part of that. So you're just falling into the trap of complete ignorance. And if I had been prepared to show photographs like you're doing, I would have brought in with some of the famous Indian military units where everybody in there looks like they're a black man. I know Indians who are very dark. In fact, I remember a couple of lovely young ladies that used to work on my show. I thought they were black women until they laughed one day and said, "You think we're black? We're Indian." And a lot of people get suckered into falling for that. Where that birth certificate of live birth came from is interesting. My late mother-in-law used to be a paternity nurse in that very same hospital during the very same year that woman, Mrs. Imhoff, was born, Kamala Harris Imhoff. So she seems to be playing chameleon here. Let's see, she's adopted two Jewish children when they were in high school. That's okay, that's her business. She belongs to the Hillcrest Country Club, a famous, very wealthy, very white, very Jewish country club that has had very bad relations with black folk for the longest time in Los Angeles. Okay, you want a reference for that? Go look it up. But that's the fact of the thing. She is a fake. And being someone from Jamaica does not make you black. It only makes you somebody born in Jamaica. Now, that's just the way of it. If you look at that birth certificate and you examine it, it's interesting. It says point of origin for the mother, it says India. It says race, it says Caucasian. For the father, where he's from, it's blank, which should have had Jamaica in there. And where it says race, it says Jamaican, but you can have black, white, brown, red, yellow. And as many times as I've been to Jamaica, I've seen all of the above who were born in Jamaica and would be classified as Jamaican subjects. So that's a non-issue. Now, where do we go from there? It's like, what policy do we have? We have someone who has been in charge of the southern border, and they have completely failed, but they want to be commander in chief and in charge of securing the United States. They can't even secure a border, let alone the country. You will talk about Nazism. I talk about Nazism. I'm looking at Strength Through Joy, a Nazi program implemented in 1933 and perfected in 34 that had the exact same name doing the exact same thing. Waltz, who is running for vice president, says over and over again, free speech should not be absolute. It should be restricted so there's no misinformation. Kamala Imhoff says she's going to set up first thing a commission to fight misinformation. That sounds like exactly what the Nazis said with the exact same words in 1934. And I'm sorry, a well-educated person should have learned that way, way back. I heard it in the 5th, 6th grade in elementary school, and again in high school, and again in college, and again in law school, and over the years reading it. Now, the next thing, 1934, the Nazis set out a program to disarm the public, and she's saying the first thing she's going to do is sign an executive order to have a mandatory buyback of all semi-auto weapons. Now, that's unconstitutional. It won't last, but it'll take a year and a half for people to get that through the court system, and that means Americans will be trespassed upon, have their property confiscated, and maybe a few die when they say they're not giving their guns up. Meanwhile, the cartels are bringing crates of guns across the southern border along with the kilos of dope. And that's part of what's going on. We've got a lack of character being taught in this country. It's being emasculated, and you cannot take a boy and healthily raise that child to be a man if you try to negate his masculinity. And I'm sorry, but if you wanted to go find it, you could have found it easy on Black Lives Matter's mantra, which got taken down after myself and a number of people attacked them. The first thing was, we are for the destruction of the traditional nuclear family. We are for the ending of cisgender privilege in the family.